Tim Matthews, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? You and I have been back and forth for, I don't even know how long it's been now.
Months.
Yeah, long overdue. So I'm expecting this to be a very special 45 minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much as well, because like as I was saying earlier, I've heard you on many podcasts and I've been following you on Facebook and so on, and you obviously got this group going on. So it's just going to be really great to get a few insights. I had questions after the listening to you on the podcast. You know, more I want to know about you, and I think that's really cool. So I'd love for my guys, people who are listening to my show, to get to know you a little bit more. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about what you're up to. And we'll get into it. So I always start the show off the same way. I ask the same question. How do you do what you love and love what you do?
Wow, how do I do what I love and love what I do? Great question. There's two angles on that. How do I do what I love? So for probably 28 years of my life, I ignored one simple rule of being able to really love what you do, and that is following your gut instinct and following your intuition. And like I said, for 28 years of my life, that wasn't something that I was very good at, for various reasons. The main one being that I was afraid to do it, because often what I was being called to do scared the shit out of me, and it meant that I was going to come up against a lot of fears, and I played small and decided to hustle and grind it out and all the rest of it. So how do I do what I love? Being able to follow that, learn the power of that, and then how do I love what I do? That comes down to my pace of life, to be honest, Paul.
Yeah, right.
Whenever I'm living too fast and too hard, and we speak about this a lot with the guys in this community right now that we're live in the activation method and on the whole message around the powerful man, we speak a lot about not living too fast and too hard. But I'm a human being, no one's perfect, and there'll be times when I do go back into my old pattern, because my old pattern for 20 years of my life was to hustle and to grind it out and to push and to force, and I was very good at it. But I didn't really enjoy my life. I didn't really experience a lot of fulfillment in my life. So in terms of how do I love what I do, it's very much about that balance, that pace of life between achievement, so the science of achievement, and then the art of fulfillment.
So what were you looking for all those years ago when you were just push? What were you actually looking for?
Significance.
Yeah. To be significant.
Yeah. To feel significant, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I very much chased money and success, and I turned to business to do this. I started my first business when I was 24 as a personal trainer, and quite early in that journey, I also started another company called Fitness for Mum, which was a pre- and postnatal fitness company. And I didn't realize it at the time, but a lot of my drive came from the need and the desire to prove my worth as a man and to gain significance and to feel good enough, ultimately. Because, again, I wasn't aware of this, but for the first 28 years of my life, I just didn't feel good enough. And I believed that success, money, status, all those things that I and a lot of other men was taught to believe.
We're told to
I thought those things, I thought those things were the Holy Grail. When I get this, that's when I'll be happy. When I get to there, that's when I'll slow down. I don't need anyone. I can do it on my own. All those stories of the lone wolf. All of those were going on for me.
And you've talked a lot about your journey, like back when you were 7. There was a football match. You scored 4 goals. Tell us about that story.
Oh, wow.
I've gone straight to the core.
Yeah, you have. And you can tell my body shifts, my breathing changes. So basically how I learned came to that point. So I'll take it a step back a little bit to put this into context. So when I'm 32, I'm 33 this year. So when I was, I think, about 28, this was in September of 2014, I think it was. Basically, I was engaged to get married, of course. We'd booked the wedding, we'd bought the house. We'd just bought the house, a house that My girlfriend's parents actually put a lot of money down as a deposit. It was bought as a family house that we'd move into and we'd have kids. But the bottom line was that I was very unhappy in the relationship. It was a very abusive relationship,
Right.
mainly verbally abusive. Sometimes she'd be quite physically abusive. And I used to tolerate it. I used to tolerate it looking back because I just didn't believe that. I was afraid that nobody else would want me. And also I didn't want to give up on the relationship. I didn't want to fail at the relationship. And also subconsciously my standards for myself were so low. But anyway, at this time, I'd recently met now one of my best friends called Tom Crawshaw.
Right.
And he was working his business online. He was working from anywhere in the world, earning more money, helping more people. And I was looking at him. And he was like, back then, I didn't know anyone in personal development. And I was looking at him thinking, fuck, how's this guy who's younger than me? How's he figured it out? How's he got it all together? And he was like the real life example, the real touch, feel, see example of everything I'd been reading about and listening about. And it really had me look at my life and look at how I was showing up. Because in my life, like I said, I was in that relationship where I was tolerating. I'd just been robbed of tens of thousands in a bad business deal.
Right.
I took on problem customers. I undercharged for my services. I routinely worked 15, 16, 17 hours a day. A few years prior to that, I almost died from taking too many drugs because I was just a people pleaser. I used to cheat on women because I'd put my self-worth on being able to pull all the women that all the guys wanted. So it really flipped me into this moment of reflection where I was looking back on just a pattern of my life over the past kind of 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And one of the other things that really pushed me into going into this moment of reflection was the fact that my mum and dad were about to put £10,000 down on the wedding. Now, they paid the deposit, and you can obviously, £1,500, £2,000, it's not as big of a deal compared to 10,000. And they were going to put it down, and I knew that relationship was going to end in divorce. I knew that marriage would end in divorce. I just knew it. And as I started to reflect on why my life was just a pattern of stress, struggle, and sacrifice in all areas, I became aware that there was one thing that I always did, and that was that I constantly ignored my gut instincts. I started to ask, well, why? What's going on? And I traced it back to this moment when I was 7 years old. And I grew up in a household whereby it was very much like, you will fear your father and wait till your father comes home. And, positive affection and positive emotion, love, joy, celebration, all those things weren't things that were that readily available in my house. My mum used to be very afraid of my father. I used to witness that. I used to be very afraid of him. I remember I used to have to call him daddy until a certain age. Like, what the fuck? Just a controlling thing. And anyway, I used to get to see him a lot when I was younger because he used to work a lot. He'd come home, I'd be in bed, he'd work away, things like that. And on a weekend, we used to go up to the local field and practice football, soccer, if you've got any American listeners.
Or footy, and soccer in Australia because they've got the footy here, which is highly confusing with the AFL.
And anyway, yes, he teach me how to pass, how to sit, all sorts of different things. And this one week, as you were saying, I was playing in a local primary school match for my primary school, and I scored 4 goals. And I was like, fuck, yes, I can't wait to get home and tell him this is my moment. He's going to be so proud of me, because as you do, all guys want to make their dad proud. It's like an innate thing, isn't it? It's like a rite of passage. Mm-hmm. And I can remember being really excited, but also really nervous about this. Because it's like, this is my moment. Like, I wasn't used to speaking my voice. I used to tread on eggshells a lot when I was younger. Anyway, my dad got home. The car pulled into the drive. He came in. He went upstairs, got a shower, came down, grabbed a beer, came into the living room, sat in his chair, like all dads do. All dads have a chair, don't they? Yep. Sat in his chair. Yeah. Turned on the TV, and I went to stand in front of him to tell him about these goals I'd just scored. And I can remember it was a big moment. I don't even think I got through the first goal. And he just did this hand movement just to move me to the side. I can remember remember feeling so deflated. And I was like 7 years old, 7 or 8 years old. I remember just walking off out of the living room, just thinking, no, what do I have to do? What do I have to do to basically get your recognition? What do I have to do to be good enough? And I made the decision right there and then that I just wasn't good enough. And I looked for ways in which to prove it right my entire life. My sister, who's 7 years older than me, she went traveling when she was 18. I was 11. I just believe she didn't want to be around me. She left me in that house all on my own, in that environment. I then got into the teenage years, early 20s. I used to cheat on girls, like I said. Took too many drugs, and then I got into business, chased business, and then it led me to this point when I was 28 years old, and was like, "Fuck, I can't get married," and it all came crumbling down.
Sounds like a cycle of sort of self-sabotage as you were going through there.
Yeah, definitely was, but I didn't know I was doing it because it was like the drugs, for example. I used to take drugs recreationally. Obviously, looking back on it was to escape because, I just was early 20s, didn't really know what I was wanting to do, didn't really know my path. I was denying myself a lot. It was just an escape on a weekend.
Well, it brings out those parts of us that we don't want to bring out, self-expression.
Exactly. I used to use drugs and alcohol a lot as an avenue of expression because obviously then we feel comfortable, don't we? Because the inhibitions are down. And gradually it just got worse and worse and worse. And it was strange because on one hand I'd go over here in business, or I've always been really driven and motivated and worked hard. When I was young, 10 years old, I used to go around the street in the neighborhood washing cars, making money. I got a paper round and I got the hardest one that paid the most money. So I've always had this work ethic in me. I used to sell chocolate bars at school. My mum would get all these chocolate bars cheap, bring them home, and I used to just take them into school. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew I could earn like £2 or £3 a day if I did it. And on a weekend I'd have 15 quid. And I'd be like, whoa! And I'd spend it on beer. But yeah, the point is, it was this pattern of sabotage, like you say, because on one hand, I'd be out there doing the work, going after what I wanted when I was in my mid-20s and I started as a PT in the fitness business.
Yeah.
But then I'd sabotage because I want to escape my life and sedate because no matter what I was achieving over here, it never really felt like it was ever good enough. It never really filled me up.
Yeah.
And part of that was because I was living too fast and too hard, 15, 16, 17 hours a day. You can't be fulfilled when you're doing that all the time, 7 days a week. You had fleeting moments where I used to get in bed on an evening with a smile on my face thinking, fuck yeah, 15 hours today. I'd be proud. I can remember feeling proud about how hard I could work. And
because you spoke of your badge of honor. That's something you wore.
It was a massive badge of honor. I used to really take pride in how much pain I could tolerate, which is kind of weird, isn't it? But it's also what we're kind of taught to believe a lot, pride in the struggle. We're taught to believe that if something's easy, it's not worth having. What's that about,
Yeah, it's an odd conditioning. So just jumping back a little bit, do you, how's that relationship now? Just jumping back to that stuff that you had with your dad there. How's the relationship moved on and since you have, let's call it, awakened from that self-sabotage, that lack of self-worth? How have you nurtured that relationship?
How is the relationship and how have I nurtured it? So something then happened. So when I was 28 and I called off the wedding, I moved back in with my parents, of course, because I didn't move into the house we just bought. I got rid of the offices that we used to have for Fitness for Mum, got rid of the business partner that I had there. It really started this, I guess looking back, you'd call it cleansing and purging. I didn't know I was doing that at the time. I just knew that all my life I'd ignored what felt right. And I made a commitment to myself that was I'm only going to do what feels right. And step by step, the first thing that felt right was to not get married. The second step was to leave the offices, to leave the business partner, and it was just. Looking back, it gives me goosebumps. It was an amazing time in my life because I was so detached. I'd reached the point of, you know what, fuck this. I'm just doing what feels right regardless. So anyway, September time I moved back in with my parents. And it got to the February, March of the following year. And I was upstairs in my bedroom. My door was open. And I could hear my dad just talking shit to my mum downstairs. He'd been drinking too much. He used to, my dad has been through his own pain as a kid, and obviously what you don't take on, you pass on, which is what he had done. But anyway, point is, he came upstairs. He was a bit drunk, and he looked across the hallway and he said, "You make sure you take those fucking dogs out before you go to bed." And bearing in mind, I'd just gone through this whole process of not tolerating stuff anymore, and also I'd not been living there for so many years. To then hear him try and come up and control me in that manner after doing the same thing to my mum downstairs, I just wasn't going to tolerate it. So, I laid on the bed. I was like, "Do not speak to me like that. I will speak to you how I want while you're in my house." I'm like, "Do not speak to me like that." And he stood up in his doorway, I stood up in mine, and I was just looking him square in the eye, very firm. And the exchange went back and forth for a little bit. And he's like, "Fine, if you don't like it, get your bags and leave." Like, "Fine, okay, fine." Got my bags, went downstairs, sat with my mum, made sure she was okay. I was afraid to leave her, to be honest. And I then left. But coincidentally, or not so coincidentally, I was meeting my uncle the following day to talk about business because he was very successful in his own business. And this is someone who my dad respects highly. And when I met him, I just laid it on the table. We didn't even talk about business. I just said, "You know what your brothers really like?" I just told him everything, because to everybody else, my dad was the life and soul of the party. So nice, so jovial, but behind closed doors in the family environment, he just didn't have a clue how to conduct himself because of what he had witnessed in his own youth and with his father. So when I told my uncle all of this, I then got my mum on the phone. I had her confess everything. I got my sister on the phone. I had her confess everything. And my uncle was just like gobsmacked, like absolutely gobsmacked. And he's like, "Right, just take me around there now. Just take me around there, and I'm going to go speak to him. I need to speak to him because he's going to lose all you guys." And gives me goosebumps. I took him around, dropped him off at the house, and just left him there. My dad was then ringing me and ringing me and ringing me. I just didn't want to speak to him. So it got to about a week down the line, and I'd still not spoken to him because, again, I'm doing what feels right for me. I'm putting myself first for the first time ever. 20 years old, for 6 months out of 28 years, I was putting myself first. Crazy. And when I finally spoke to him, I had a very honest and open conversation with him. I said, "Look, I don't need you in my life anymore, just like you don't need me in your life. We're both grown adults. We don't need each other. I want to be in your life and I want you to be in my life, but I'm no longer willing to come down and play at your level. I'm just not going to do it. If you want to be in my life, which I hope you do, then these are the rules." And I wasn't doing anything like, "Fuck you, these are my rules." It wasn't coming from ego. It was coming from honor and love for myself, first and foremost. And the rules were around how he spoke to me and, how much he used to drink and, things like that, just nothing crazy. I was like, "Look, if you don't, if they are in alignment with you, that's totally fine. I get it. But I'm not going to be in this relationship without them." And, credit to him, he was like, "I'm going to do whatever it takes." And a few months after that, a couple of things happened. One is that it's like I don't want to demean the situation, but it's then like training someone, isn't it? Because new boundaries and new standards have been, new boundaries and new standards have been introduced. And he tried to go back to old ways of doing things, how he'd speak to me, how he'd look at me, lack of affection, lack of appreciation, just lack of overall respect. My dad used to command respect from me and my sister and my mother. He didn't earn it, he commanded it. He thought it was a birthright, a given. And it wasn't going to be the way anymore. And anyway, so after we'd had that conversation, there were times when he tried to go back to his old ways. And I'd just very calmly say, look, if you're going to speak to me like that, I'm going to leave. And he'd just stop and he'd check himself. That's all I'd say. In a very calm manner, that's all I'd say. Now, my sister, on the other hand, she never had this conversation with him. She never said these things. So 4 years on, she still struggles with the relationship. Whereas I've got a really amazing relationship with him now. But one of the reasons why is because a few months after that, someone said to me, Tim, it seems like a lot of your behaviour in business still is wanting to prove yourself. I was like, Well, I checked in with it and he was right. He was like, you speak about your father a lot. Have you ever asked him if he's proud of you? And I was like, whoa, like, no, I've not. But obviously, I just made this commitment to do what felt right, and I knew what was coming. It's like, he up for a challenge. Obviously, I'm not going to back down from a challenge, am I? So, like, yeah, cool, what is it? I'll give you 7 days to ask your dad if he's proud of you.
Because we expect our dads to tell us that they're proud of us.
Yeah, yeah, you do, don't you? You know it, but do you feel it? Big difference. Do you know it? You know he's proud of you, or you think, but do you feel it? Massive difference. Yeah. And anyway, he said, I'll give you 7 days to do it. I'm like, easy. Got to the 7th day, I'd still not done it. And I'm like, what the? Why is this so hard? Why am I making this so complicated? Got to the 8th day, and I'm like, this is crazy. So I drove around there. I found every excuse in the first 7 days to delay and delay and delay and delay. And I just drove around there. Luckily, he was in on his own. And I walked through the door. He was just there chopping some stuff, cooking in the kitchen because he loves to cook. And the door's back out into the garden. And I can remember walking past him, saying hi, walking into the garden and just pacing back and forth, rehearsing it in my mind. Okay, Daddy, you're proud of me, Daddy. And I just, every time I went up to the door to go and ask him, I just froze. Like, I've never, ever been in that position, ever.
What were you afraid of?
I was afraid of being seen. I was afraid of asking him the question. I was afraid of that level of connection and vulnerability with him. I'd never had it in my entire life with him. I'd totally gone back to being like a 4-year-old kid.
Yeah, right.
And anyway, I kind of blurred the words out. I was like, are you proud of me? I was like, what? I've been asked to ask you, so I took it to me. I've been asked to ask you if you're proud of me. Are you proud of me? So why are you asking me that? Well, just answer the question, yes or no, are you proud of me? It's like, of course I am. Why? Like, because you've never told me. You just dropped the knife, walked from behind the counter, sat at the table with me. I told him about everything. I just came fully clean. I was like, do you know what? When I was 7 years old, I didn't blame him by any means because I was very much taking ownership for everything in my life. That was the start of it all, really. And I was like, look, when I was 7 years old, I never really used to feel like I could be myself. For 28 years of my life, I never felt like I could be myself around my family at all. It was a really weird feeling. I remember just always feeling really... I felt comfortable outside of the house. I just never felt like I could be myself. It was really, really strange. But anyway, I told my dad exactly how I used to feel. I told him about the match when I was 7 years old and came home and what happened and the belief I then formed and all the cheating on girls, which he kind of knew about, the taking of drugs, which obviously he did know about because I was in hospital, business, the relationship that I didn't tolerate because I was just afraid that, what if nobody else wanted me? And he just sat there and he just took it all in and he just apologised. He was like, look, I'm really sorry. I don't even remember that day when I was 7. And he was like, I never really used to have a father. Your grandfather, the grandfather you remember, because I got on with him really well. That's not how he raised me. There was 7 or 8 of him and his brothers and sisters. And he just went on to tell me about his upbringing and how his first mentor, when he got a job when he was 16, was like a father figure. And he used to, all sorts of stuff my dad went through when he was younger. and he just suppressed it and avoided it and ran from it and turned to work and to business because that's what it meant to be a man and a provider. Money, used alcohol, used women, all these things. And we had an amazing, amazing conversation. It was like my dad had said things that he wanted to say his entire life, but no one had ever asked him.
If only we could all have that same conversation with a dad. But I can see that the key thing that I got there was that it took for you to step up, show up, and step into the vulnerability and step into the fear and everything you were going through as you were pacing around outside to have him then share with you. Otherwise, it would never have come out if it wasn't for you to step forward. It seems that generationally, I don't know, I'm probably generalizing, but generationally, we seem to be better at that than perhaps our fathers and fathers' fathers.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, in that moment, Paul, the relationship went from man to boy to man to man. And ever since then, the relationship's just got better and better. And Sunday just gone, it was Father's Day in the UK. And I wrote in his card, I was like, look, I really appreciate and love the relationship that I've got with you now. And I went out for dinner with him and my mum, and I was just sharing things with them that, 2 or 3 years ago, I probably wouldn't have ever shared. And I left dinner with them, and I was just like, wow, it was amazing. And I've had other conversations with my father, and there's so much wisdom in him that he's never expressed. And I personally think that's one of the biggest I don't know if it's shames. Yeah, one of the saddest things is all of the gifts and wisdom and love that our fathers actually have within them that we miss out on sometimes because of the lack of relationship. And don't get me wrong, my relationship with my father, there's still so much more available for us both to experience together. And it plays on my mind a lot about, making the most of our time together. Because I think that would be such a regret. And it's such an opportunity as well to just build that bridge and have that relationship. And yeah, generationally it is, because the whole conversation of what it means to be a man and fulfillment and success and, social media, all the tools that we have available to us now and the technology and everything means that we can have conversations like this across the world. Whereas obviously for our fathers, it was different. So generationally, yeah, totally. It's changing. We are the generation that are going to shift things. My kids are going to be raised very differently to how I was raised in a lot of respects. And it's a phenomenal time. A really phenomenal time.
This is the middle bits, Tim. This is where I'm going to throw some unplanned questions at you.
Boom.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
What's your number one tip for kick-ass mind health?
Kick-ass mind health. I'm going to go with what comes up for me, and I would say stillness actually came up for me. So what do I mean by stillness? Having those moments in your day where it's just filled with nothing. Moments in the day where it's not something to do, instead it's something to be. Oh, yeah. Fulfillment isn't an action, it's a state. Happiness isn't an action, it's a state. But obviously you've got to have the space in your life and the pace in your life, whether it's slow or whatever, to actually experience that.
How do you enjoy stillness? What do you do for
that? Spend time on my own, often whether it's in nature or going to the gym or going for walks or meditation or simple things like driving, having the window down, feeling the breeze, daydreaming. I love watching the clouds. I love listening to the birds. Nature's a huge one for me. I feel really deeply connected to nature and it has a really calming effect on me.
If you could go back to, let's say, your teenage self, if you could go back and give him one piece of fundamental advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Follow your instincts because it's never wrong.
Right. So it's never been wrong since?
It's never wrong. It's never wrong. Your instinct is never, ever wrong. It's not.
Is that the listen to your gut, listen to the inner voice that you talk of?
Yeah. Yeah. It's always the right thing to do. Your gut instinct, whether you try and deny it and not listen to it and do the thing, it doesn't work out. It always causes some kind of pain or struggle or frustration. And often you listen to it and do it, it takes courage and balls, and and the faster you can reduce the more you can reduce the lag time and because we speak a lot about feeling and acting, feel, act, feel, act, feel, act. But most people feel, think, kind of act, and kind of get some results.
Overthink,
yeah, analysis, paralysis, all that kind of stuff. But the more you follow your instinct, but it's all about putting your needs first, isn't it?
Yeah. How do you build the gap then between, as one of my previous guests talked about anger, he talks about stimulus and response. Like there's not much space between stimulus and response. For anger, for example, it's 0.3 of a second, I think. But you can learn to expand that space. So how would you do that when listening to the gut, when all we kind of tend to do is we go into the head so quickly? How do you recognize that it's the gut you're hearing?
It's very peaceful.
I like that.
It's very, very peaceful. And so how do you listen to it more? It's pace of life. Again, if you're living too fast and too hard, caffeine, certain things in your diet, if you're not exercising, if you're not getting enough sleep, if your day is so packed out that you don't have any space for yourself, it's really starting to become aware of your energy. And when you start to get into that frenetic, chaotic, busy space, you're going to be in your head. You just are. So it's about being able to be mindful of your pace of life and have certain routines in your life so that you can have those moments whereby you have the stillness or the active stillness to actually tune in and feel what's right. But it communicates to you with feeling. And when something just lands and something just feels right, it feels peaceful and also kind of exciting as well. And then it feels scary because then you start to get into your head and think of all the things that could go wrong. But hopefully by that point, you've taken some kind of action on it. So it's already in motion.
So taking action before your head gets in the way.
Or when your head is getting in the way.
I'll just recognise that and go pushing through the head.
And one of the key things to mention there as well is not getting ahead of yourself, not trying to think of step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Usually when you are inspired, because that's what it is. When you're inspired, you're in spirit. And, it communicates to you and it feels peaceful. So just be with that one piece and action that one piece. And then the next bit will be revealed after you've actioned that one piece. But many people want to then plan the second and the third and the fourth piece without ever actioning the first one. So they never actually get any feedback on which to be able to feel into it and go again.
I see. So sort of having faith that it will reveal itself when it's ready to do so, and just sitting with what you're doing right now. And, you're moving towards something, let's say it's a goal, maybe it's an intangible goal, but just having faith that you're in the right direction.
Yeah, kind of. And alongside this, a key to this is you being able, myself, you, anyone, being able to be absolutely, I was going to say absolutely rock solid, but it doesn't take being absolutely rock solid. It just takes an awareness and a practice of self-love. Because what this is, what we're talking about, this ability to slow down your life and be mindful of your pace of life, be aware of what feels right and follow it. That in itself is one of the biggest acts of self-love you can give yourself. It's the ability to express yourself and follow what feels true for you. But for you to actually have the courage to do that and develop the practice of it, it's important that you're also mindful of your self-love and being consistent with it across all areas. It's very difficult to show up in any, let's just say business, with that kind of practice we've just spoken about if in your relationship you're tolerating and you're sacrificing and you are hiding. It's just very difficult. And same with your health. If you're then just drinking beer every night or relying on drugs or porn or whatever to sedate or switch off, then all these things then block out that communication. So it's a very holistic approach. I know that it can also be very simple too, but it's about you. It's like I did. It's easy to use this as an example because it's relevant right now. In that period when I was 28 and I went through basically that kind of process without knowing it. Relationship, right, what's going on there that's out of alignment? Boom. Business, what's going on there that's out of alignment? Boom. Relationships that aren't intimate, what's going on there? People, places, situations, and so on. And just getting rid of those things and almost being able to start a bit of a fresh one by one with this new rule that you're only going to do what feels right. And obviously, as you level up in business, let's say, and you go through the phase of hiring staff and building a company and building a brand and systems and all that kind of stuff, you just get to double down on your practice even more of really being mindful of your energy and how things feel. Because otherwise, things can very quickly just run away with you. And before you know it, you're 6 months down the line and you've been in your head for the past 4 months feeling stressed out, burnt out, fearful, your decision-making slower, your success has slowed down because you're less inspired, you're less creative. And that how you show up in your business with that leadership, your team then take it all on, or whoever,
Yeah, has that ripple effect. So is there a book or resource? There's obviously many books out there, but any particular resource that you can draw on that's really been pivotal for you, pivotal to your change?
The activation method.
For those listening, that's Tim's program, which we'll definitely be talking about in a moment.
Do you know what? In terms of being pivotal to change, it's one of the things I always say. I go through phases of learning and reading, like reading or listening to audiobooks. I don't just listen to them 24/7 all year round because I used to do, but then I became full of everybody else's ideas. And when I was going through that whole phase when I was 28 and I went through that phase of cleansing, if you like, over about 6 to 8 months, I wasn't really reading a great deal because I was so focused on me, on what felt right, and so focused on turning down the noise in my life so I could listen to what felt right and tune in. So I firmly believe that you are your greatest teacher. I am my greatest teacher, if we listen to those lessons. And obviously I have some other tools and techniques to actually implement them. But if I was to recommend a book that is really useful in alignment with this kind of message and methodology, one that I found to be really good is Conversations with God.
Okay. Haven't read it.
And you've not read it?
I haven't, but I will.
Yeah, it's great. The title you might think means it's some kind of religious book, but it's not. It's all about. It's a fascinating book. It's all about this exact thing. If I'm honest, about your intuition and it's a really great book, a really easy read, and it'll probably bring out a lot of things in you as well.
Thank you. We'll make sure there's a link to that book and anything else we talk about today, any other links, resources, they'll be in the show notes. So for the guys listening, that's themendbits.com/40 because this is episode 40.
Oh.
Now, I like to set intention before I have an interview, set intention before I set goals, set intention before I make a plan. So what would one word of intention be for you? If you were looking at, say, the next 12 months, what's one word that stands out?
Surrender.
I like that.
Surrender. Because if I'm to think about what we're going through right now in the business, this year I've entered a triathlon. I used to think I went to the gym. There's going to the gym and working out, isn't there? And I've never run a 10K. I've never done any kind of thing like that. So point being is I've entered a triathlon, the business. We've been going through a lot of growth. There's a lot of men that are coming on board. There's the team that's quadrupled in size the past few. All sorts of things that are going on there. Obviously, then I've got a girlfriend, relationship, dogs, family, all that kind of stuff. So there's been a lot of growth. And the more I try to keep control and keep track of every little detail, the more overwhelming and confusing and stressful it becomes. Conversely, the more I surrender to what feels right, without the need to know every detail and without the need for it to be perfect, the faster and easier things flow and the bigger and better results we always get in any area. Has been true for me and the men that we work with. So, surrender.
When's the triathlon?
28th of July. So about 5 weeks.
Not far. If it helps, one of my clients, one of my massage clients, is 72 and he competes in triathlons. And for me, that was a real kick up the bum to go, all right, he's 72 and he's doing triathlons. I think I can do more than I'm doing right now. I think I can do better than just, meandering around the gym with my phone,
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what, Paul? I reviewed my year last year, 2017, and although I was showing up powerfully in business and all the rest of it, the theme for my year was I was hiding. I wasn't allowing myself to have enough fun, and I wasn't allowing myself to really express myself. So the theme of this year was to expression, fully be me. So when I was asked to enter the triathlon, I was like, wow, what a great way to just, express myself through fitness, which I love. So I said yes, and then decided to learn the guitar and we've been traveling a lot more this year and, everything. Been a very busy year, but a very enjoyable and productive year as well so far.
You made it through the middle bits. Well done.
Hey.
Yep, still alive. So you've sort of touched on a lot of things that remind me of Lewis Howes' book, The Mask of Masculinity. I find that guys tend to put on that mask, and definitely our dads, our fathers, tend to live their whole life with the mask on. As you said earlier, it's almost like your father's mask was removed there once you opened up the door for him to do that. So that's amazing. So you've talked about the activation method. So I'd like to know more about that. So what is that about?
So how the coaches describe it, the work in the program, and also how the clients describe it, is as a 10-week boot camp. So how it works is it's an online group coaching program. We work best with businessmen aged 32 to 45 who feel bored, burnt out, or broken. So bored in their relationships, burnt out in the business, or feel broken because no matter what they achieve, it's just never enough. And we're really good at working with them to implement the system of the activation method, which relies on the truth, the creed, and the pillars. There are 3 components of it that work in unison. They cannot work alone. And when we support the men to start with the truth, so basically the truth is always step 1. And the mantra around the truth is, I am set free with the truth. And there's 4 components to the truth that the men cycle through to be able to take off the mask, essentially. Okay. And from there, they move on to the creed. And it's all about I create with the creed. And again, there's 4 components to the creed, which have them be able to create in all areas of their life in this very inspired and productive manner. Then from there, they move on to the pillars, and it's I produce with the pillars. And again, 4 components. We give them a tool called the Chart of Intentional Living, and every week they have a score out of 35 for how well they've performed. There's 5 areas in their life that we track them on: business, relationships, money, health, and happiness. And they can get 1 point in each area per day, 7 days a week, 35 points for the week. Right. So when they're in the program, there's 2 calls a week. One call is a training with a Q&A, and the second call is accountability and breakthrough. So on that second call, everything we do is results-based. Everything we do. We've got an 80% success rate, which I'm very proud of, and 50% of the men that go into the program then continue with us for a year, because obviously what we're doing with them works. And on that second call, they're asked 4 questions. What's your score for the week? What are your biggest wins for the week? If every week was, what are your biggest lessons for the week? So what are you going to do differently next week? And if every week was like this, would you achieve your 30-day commitments, yes or no?
Right.
Very simple, very straightforward, and it's a very powerful system that delivers a really powerful results that has men making more money, having more sex and connection with the partner, and actually finally experiencing fulfillment and happiness for often the first time ever in their life, especially in a way whereby they can control it consciously. Sometimes they've experienced it before, but it's been very fleeting. They've not really known, how they've been happy or what's gone on, or. So it's an amazing, amazing program. Last 10 weeks, we only work with 6 men at a time. Like I said, it's very intimate and very private. 6 men go in, stay together for 10 weeks, and then obviously we'll review it after the 10 weeks.
Interesting. So, what would be an example of where somebody's gone from and arrived to across that period of time? So, could you maybe share a non-confidential example?
Yeah. They're typically very much all in the same place or a very, very similar place. So the guys that we work with, they've typically all achieved a certain level of financial success. So usually they are 6 or 7 figure earners.
Yeah.
And this one guy in particular, when we started working with him, he had made a lot of money in various other businesses he'd had in the past, very property and other bits and pieces. But it had come at the cost of his relationship. He was divorced. He had 2 kids. And he felt very lost, lonely, and confused. He knew that he was capable of something more. He really wanted to achieve something more in his life, but he just didn't know how. He didn't know how. He just wasn't giving himself permission. He was filling that void in his life with alcohol, drugs, recreationally, money, lots of different women, and no matter what he did, it just was never enough. And over the course of the 10 weeks, he was able to make peace with the pain that he was experiencing. He healed a relationship with his ex-wife, and then they went on to have a really great relationship. Not together, of course, but a co-parenting relationship. Right. He then got into a relationship or started dating a woman that he really felt very passionately about. He started a business that he's always wanted to start, that he's absolutely in love with right now, and he's thriving. And he actually was able to wake up in the morning actually feeling happy and being proud of who he is in this very moment without needing to achieve anything else. That doesn't mean that he's not going to achieve anything else. He certainly is, and he is going to do, and he is already doing. But he doesn't need that achievement to give him any significance, because he's been able to get to the root of why he was chasing so much and actually come clean and heal all of that.
Okay, so he's just managed to sort of own it and just manage his own self-worth, or manage his own fulfillment internally. He doesn't need anything to he doesn't need material, he doesn't need anything to keep himself feeling good. It's just within. I think I've just lost you. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I've lost you. Let me just recall you. Can you hear me?